and welcome to Pricing College with your hosts Aidan Campbell
and Joanna Wells.
We want to wish all our listeners a happy new year, and this is our first episode of 2021, which I am sure you also hope will be a much better year than 2020.
Yeah, happy new year. I know for some it's been very difficult in different areas with the hotspots and shutdowns and lockdowns. It's been quite tough, especially over Christmas. So we're hoping for a really good, positive new year this year.
And on that note, maybe you're yearning for a holiday, yearning for a vacation, and you've been tempted. If you're like me, you might be getting promotional emails from cruise companies, people like Carnival or Royal Caribbean. Maybe you're receiving those sort of emails into your inbox and thinking, do you know what, I really could do with cruising the South Pacific.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have been saying, gosh, I wish we could go on a proper holiday. One which you don't have to worry about COVID virus, shutdowns, lockdowns, restrictions, wearing masks, putting on hand sanitizer. Yesteryear's holiday where we're sort of not thinking about any of those things. It was actually a holiday, seems like many years ago. Is it a dream or do you think they'll come back? Now, in terms of cruise ships, we're just like thinking and talking about it the other day. You know, we're getting all these promotional campaigns through emails from Royal Caribbean, Carnival Cruises. Is it actually working? Are people actually buying cruise holidays now, even in spite of COVID, or is it just sort of a lost cause to just drive promotional strategies and hope for demand increases? Don't know.
You know, really, if you get a promotional email into your inbox from Royal Caribbean or any of these big companies, I know there's maybe 5 or 6 major companies in Australia and globally. You know, when you book that cruise, let's be honest, you don't know if that cruise is actually going to happen. Right now, it's very difficult to forecast more than 2 weeks out. So say you snap up one of these special offers, a discounted price or extra stuff added in, and you pay your money across. What really are you buying? I suppose today we want to really just play around with this idea, think what is the transaction there? Because, like, to be honest, you're not going on that cruise anytime soon. Certainly not in the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And the reality of it is why are people coughing up good money now to go on potentially a pipe dream or something that's so far in the future, they don't even know if it will happen?
Well, let's look at cruise ships buying. Who buys cruise ships and cruise holidays? I mean, people that go on cruises tend to be quite fanatical about cruise ships. You can see this in the loyalty program structure. They've got gold, silver, bronze, platinum, you name it, all colours and segmentation on customers. This is because they know that their customers really like cruising for various different reasons. Now, just because we've experienced a huge, cruise ships have been impacted by COVID, it's been a disruption to the cruise line industry, doesn't mean that people aren't still fanatical about cruise ships. They're actually dreaming about going on cruises, even though they know that the reality is they're unlikely to go. Now, cruise ship lines know this too. They know that the customers are loyal, committed, love the dream. They even broadcast the fact that people buy maybe 7 or 8 cruises in a row just to fill the whole year with cruise ship travel. So will this be any different with the pandemic? Logically, we'd say, yeah, they're not going to go on a cruise. Who would pay in their right mind a lot of money, a big deposit for something that's not going to happen? Well, looking at the stats, 45% of people are willing to pay for something that is likely not to happen. So there's a real split here between rational buyers and irrational buyers.
I think on a lot of our podcasts and obviously our blogging, we talk about the intangibles, the other things that you're buying when you buy something, and that could be a television set, it could be status of having the biggest TV, or it could be even in this instance of buying supposedly a holiday or a vacation. What are you really buying? And when I look at it, I think, I can see from a very negative perspective from the cruise company and a cash flow aspect, which we'll cover in a little bit, but from the actual purchaser, they are getting some sort of utility, some sort of happiness, some sort of value from investing in this upfront, at some future date they will go on a cruise, and maybe it's just something to look forward to. Maybe it's just, it gives them hope. Maybe it's, they've got it marked on their calendar that all this pain will end sometime soon, and they'll be off on their jolly holidays, packing their bags, just like the old times. And to some extent, I think it's hope. There's a little bit of hope over, reality there, as Joanna said. Are they being rational? Maybe not. Is it the greatest investment in the world? Maybe not. When they get there and they do get on their cruise, will the cruise be the way they expect it and remember it to be? Again, who knows? So, there certainly is an aspect, and there's no rush or no requirement for these people to pre-book these cruises. I can't imagine they won't be able to get a cruise when they want one. So there is an aspect of hope over much more, and giving them that something to look forward to, and maybe a light at the end of the tunnel that this is it's their hope for the future.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that. Actually, when I've done a little bit more reading into what cruise ship liners are doing at the moment to ignite demand now after COVID, they are actually designing time-based promotional programs and loyalty programs to drive demand. Now, just taking one example of Royal Caribbean, they've actually got some type of cruise loyalty program designed specifically for this, where the cut-off date is the 31st of April 2021, so arriving shortly. And pretty much they designed this from around June 2020, when things were pretty bad with COVID, to this cut-off date to really drive demand. Now, how they've done this is by introducing bonus credit points, which pretty much enable them to forward. So if say that the cruise ship is cancelled, which is probably likely, then the customer can then push their cruise ship on like in a year's time and a month's time, whenever there's the next schedule of cruise liner. But it has to be the same type of cruise. What they're trying to do is drive demand now to get locking cash flow, but also not to have to give back, money, cash back, money refunds. If you can push the date back of the particular cruise line that they were buying, then they don't have to give the money back to the customer, and this helps with cash flow. And also everyone's happy they've got something to look forward to in the future. So really they are actually providing promotional strategies using time-based exclusivity, all those types of price fences and value fences to drive demand at the moment. And, some people are really, they are working to some degree. They're not particularly dropping price points. There's not been, if they are using discounts and promotions, again, it's time-based. For instance, they're giving some 60% off for the second passenger for if they buy within, up to January the 31st. Obviously, that's expired now. But, they are trying to do that, lock in people without giving away too much value, which is good to see.
You can look at this also from the seller's perspective, and we've covered in previous episodes about pricing and what is price gouging. And I think we made the definition that price gouging was exploitation or taking advantage of somebody in a weak position. I'm not suggesting that that's what these cruise companies are doing, but I would, if I was a manager or an executive in those companies, I would suggest, tread carefully, because theoretically what you are doing is you're selling a product or service that you don't really know if you can deliver at a point in time in the future. Again, from a financial perspective, clearly cruise companies have massive fixed capital costs, huge ocean liners, and there's clearly costs and maintenance and all that stuff ongoing. I'm also sure, I haven't checked the exact details, but the chance of a cruise ship borrowing money on the open market now would be, or a cruise company will be much harder now than it was 2 years ago, for example. So getting access to cash right now, when cash incoming or cash flow is probably very close to zero, must be very important for these companies. So there is, in the old accountancy concept, are you trading? And again, I'm not suggesting this, but there would be an aspect of they need cash in now, and they want that cash in, and to a large extent, they're getting this cash in prepayments for future bookings, and they're not paying interest on it. There's no debt covenants, etc. And you would probably, as a purchaser or a customer, I would suggest you should look at the small print about, what would happen if you're not there to go on that cruise that's in the future, if you're not able to do it because of, X, Y, and Z. And let's be honest, there's lots of things that could prevent you from going on that cruise, either through your own choice or government regulations. Have you had the right vaccinations that they may require? Are you prepared to wear a mask all day, every day? These sort of things that probably you'll not really make your mind up on until the last moment. And then would you qualify? The other thing I'll say is, can you really get travel insurance covering you for a cruise that, is 50-50? Will it happen? It's it really is debatable. We talk often about, you pay for security of supply and guaranteed supply. Will the cruise company really be able to guarantee that this cruise will happen? 100% no. Obviously, some jurisdictions will be much more likely. Florida looks much more likely than, say, Australia. I know that some of the Mediterranean ports even sailed last summer, so I'd expect that to happen again this summer. And also there were some sailings from Singapore. So, it really does depend on a place by place, but it's, to some extent we're getting into the territory of small print, legalese. And is that somewhere that any company who's selling holidays really, really wants to be?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think people just don't know on either side. The businesses just don't know. They can't forecast. Everybody's hoping for the best. It literally is based on hope and positivity. And COVID 2020 was a bad year. It was an unprecedented year, and it's new to people, this type of disruption across markets. So I think, you're right in a way, they've got to be cautious, but I think it's good to have, try new things, try to ignite demand, try to get things back to normal whilst still safeguarding the value that you provide to customers. Because the last thing cruise ship want to do is, train their customers to want or look out for discounts and promotions. We're already seeing what happens there in FMCG. It's not a good story there. And there's a lot of value in cruise ship liner. And I think, obviously, cruise ship liners know that. Customers know it, hence the massive loyalty programs and segmentation strategies we've discussed. So, fencing off that value is important. Yeah, not making sure that you can actually deliver on what you promise is extremely important. And I think you made a really good point about customer experience. Nobody knows what cruise line experience is actually going to look like. Is it going to be like, we imagine it, or how we had it before? Would we be really willing to pay for the new cruise line experiences if we have to walk around decks with our masks on, sanitizing every 20 seconds? And just feeling very self-conscious about being too close to people? That doesn't sound like a relaxing cruise line experience that we're used to, especially if you think about, the buffet cart and, dining in the formal dining hall where the tables are maximum 8 to 12 people. Cruising is a very sociable event. And what will COVID do to that? And what will that do to willingness to pay over time? These are questions we're yet to find out, and all based on how society and governments and even us respond to COVID.
Yeah, I think I have a couple of more, just general thoughts about this topic. I think Joanna touched on it there. If social distancing on a cruise ship is, to some extent it's a misnomer. I think I read in the paper today that some Indian cities, which are very crowded populations, are almost at herd immunity, they're saying, and this is recorded in early February. So, a cruise ship and social distancing is probably, people are kidding themselves, really. It's probably the most populated place on earth. It's much more populated than any city. So, even if you divide the population of the boat in half and only sell half the tickets, it still will be very, very crowded. It's still going to be are they going to double the prices? The cruise ship certainly needs to make a certain amount of money to cover their fixed costs, to have the staffing, to run the boat. There's a lot of that will be fixed. And so are they just going to up the prices? And will people be willing to pay those prices? Will cruising go back to much more of a luxury, 1950s and 60s sort of Love Boat era television show that in recent years has become much more egalitarian? So that's something. Will the entire business model, focus, marketing strategy change from where it is? And just another point I'd make is, you're thinking about from a revenue management perspective, and obviously cruise ships are a classic revenue management, capacity constrained. But in theory, you're selling a pipe dream now. You're selling a cruise that may happen in a certain month in the future, that may change at any point in time. So we all know airlines overbook because a certain percentage of people don't turn up. If you were a smart revenue manager, to what extent would you overbook your cruise? Realistically, what percentage? The percentage of no-shows will be much, much higher in this for a cruise running from Sydney, Australia in September this year. The no-shows will be much higher for whatever reason than, say, a red-eye flight out of Denver going to wherever. So you think about that. What would a smart revenue manager? To what extent would you turn up the overbooking?
Yeah, and I don't think looking at terms and conditions, loyalty programs, and promotional tactics and emails coming through now, I don't think people are actually thinking about that. It's very much tactical pricing and just driving people to even think about cruising now. But we've just mentioned here at the end all these more strategic business model considerations, business strategy considerations that need to be addressed. And you can see how they really do, how pricing and the business strategy for cruise liners go hand in hand here. And then really thinking about the new revenue management and pricing mechanisms that drive that, because, simply relying on these promotional tactics, price match guarantee and all these bonus extra points and, terms and conditions to validate to a certain point. They're good, but they're short-lived and they'll run out. And what they're going to do, if, you book a cruise line and it goes over the cutoff date, are they just going to, again, just extend the deadline? That makes everything else sort of seem invalid, and then promotions don't mean anything, and it actually destroys brand and business strategy. So look, there's lots of considerations. Good work has been done. I really do hope for the best in the cruise line industry. It's a great business, but we all are yet to see what real cruise lining in 2021 and onwards will look like, and whether people are really prepared to pay for that.
Yeah, I think we all need a bit of hope, a bit of positivity for the future. I personally will be really excited when I see a cruise ship sail out of Sydney Harbour. They used to hit the old foghorn, and it was a lovely sight seeing it head off. I really look forward to the day when it's full of tourists from other countries who have jetted in, borders are open, and we're back to a sensible, happy approach to life that is, and this whole period is in the background. So, I think we've highlighted some risks certainly in booking a cruise in advance, but at the same time, I hope to see many happy tourists heading off on those boats as soon as possible.
Well, thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Yeah, thank you very much. Bye.